Now we have to draw, to finish off, a number of graphs. So let's have a look at this first graph, y equals 2x plus 4. Now there's a couple of ways we can do this. I'm going to take it onto an Excel spreadsheet so I can work from there. But there's a few ways we've looked at this. Y equals 2x plus 4. We know by the rule y equals mx plus c. M is the gradient, so 2 is the gradient, so we know it's got a gradient where it goes up 2 for every 1, so it's like a steep line. And 4, we know, is the y-intercept. So we could go to the point 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and know that it goes up here and draw in those 2 points here. But let's instead draw a number of points. I think this is generally a reasonably good way to go. Let's say that we've got our x values and our y values, and let's go for the points, say, -1, 0, and 1, and work out what the y values are. The way we do this, we substitute in the x values here. So we say, okay, x equals -1. So 2 times -1 is -2. -2 plus 4 is going to equal 2. So that's our first point. Now we substitute in where x equals 0. We say 2 times x, 2 times 0 is 0, y equals 4. And our third point, we say x equals 1. So 2 times x, 2 times 1 is 2, plus 4 is 6. So let's have a look at these points. The first point is the point x equals -1, so there's where x equals -1, y equals 2. So let's pop our first point on there, x equals -1, y equals 2. The next point, x equals 0, and y equals 4. So that's going to be the point up there. And our last point is going to be x equals 1, y equals 6, right up here. Now, these points aren't necessarily the greatest, but you can see it's roughly a straight line. So if we move this over here, it'll take me a couple of goes to get this right, maybe more than a couple of goes. We then put our line through here. And while not perfectly through the points, you'll do better with a pen and paper. That is a graph of y equals 2x plus 4. We use the x values -1, 0, 1. We substitute into that equation, and that gave us these points: -1 and 2. So x -1, y equals 2. X equals 0, y equals 4. And x equals 1, y equals 6. So that's our first sum done. Let's have a look then at the second one. We've got y equals -2x plus 6. So let's pop that in here. Y equals -2x plus 6. And we'll get rid of these ones that we calculated. And we will move these points and line back off our graph over here. So, if we're going to do this, when x equals -1, this is a little bit of tricky maths. -2 times -1. So it's going to equal, 2 times 1 is 2. Negative by negative equals a positive. So it's going to be 2 plus 6. So y is going to equal 8. When x equals 0, 2 times 0 is just 0. Plus 6 is 6. And where x equals 1, -2 times 1 is going to be -2, plus 6 is going to equal 4. So let's have a look at these points. X equals -1 and y equals 8. So I think we'll just count up, check, we're going to for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's going to be right at the very top of our screen here. It doesn't quite go up here, but we'll just know that it touches the top of that point there. The next one is x equals 0, y equals 6. Comes down through here. The last one is x equals 4, x equals 1. So x equals 1, y equals 4. It's going to be there. And this might be even trickier to get the line to fit in. Again, if you've got pen and paper, you'll draw that line a little bit better than I have there. However, what's interesting to note is the last one had a positive slope and it went up this way. This one has a negative slope, so that's what we're expecting to see down here. So that's the second question. The rule, calculate some points, and then set it out. Now we go to the last question. I've got some different paper set up this. We have to determine the rule, a straight line that passes through the point -1, 5 and 2, 6. There's a few steps to this. So let's go to this piece of paper that I've gone through here. So here's what we need to think about. Find the rule of the straight line passing through points -1, 5 and 2, 6. So we know in this rule y equals mx plus c. Y equals mx plus c. That's what we're trying to find. So m is the gradient and c is the y-intercept. So this is point 1 and this is point 2. So this is the negative value is x1. Sorry, -1 is x1. The 5 is y1 because the x value is always first and y is second. This is x2 and y2. So let's have a look at putting the numbers into this rule. This is just a rule that's given to us. We want to calculate the gradient. It's the difference in y. So sometimes we talk about it as the rise divided by the run. So the difference in y is how up and down things are the rise, and difference in x is the run. So let's go. y2 is 6. y1 is 5. So it's going to be 6 minus 5 divided by x2. It's going to be 2 minus -1. So it's actually going to be +1. So let's calculate those different terms. 6 minus 5 is going to be 1 divided by 3. So the gradient is going to be 1/3. Now we know the rule equals y equals mx plus c, and we've now worked out what the gradient equals. So y equals a third x plus c. Here's where we can just substitute in a point. We can choose either of these points. I'm going to choose 2 and 6, just they look a little easier to me because they're both positive numbers. So let's substitute in the point 2, the x value is 2 and the y value is 6. So where we see the y, that's going to be 6. 6 equals 1/3 times 2. So 1/3 multiplied by 2 is actually going to be 2/3. So 6 equals 2/3 plus c. We want to get c by itself, so we can subtract 2/3 from both sides. So 6 minus 2/3 is going to leave with 5 and 1/3 equals 2/3 minus 2/3. That's just 0. That's what c equals. So now we've basically found our rule. We know that the gradient is 1/3, and we know the intercept is 5 and 1/3. So let's write our rule y equals 1/3 x 1/3 x plus 5 and 1/3. And that is the rule of the straight line passing the point, -1, 5 and 2, 6.